Hello again. I'm going to now continue with Tehillim, Psalms, chapter 75, Kapitel Ayin Hey, which we said corresponds to the year in which Donald Trump is living, 75th year. And we're talking about how it discusses the ultimate fall of the left, the evil. And that was part one. If you listen to it, you'll hear the introduction. And I'm reading from Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, his translation and commentary on Tehillim. I think I mentioned, but I don't remember if I was as clear. I mentioned that he was a rabbi in Germany in the early 1800s from 1800. He lived from 1800 to 1880 or something like that. So in the mid 1800s, he was a very powerful force against the reform. But not just that, he was a tremendously deep and clear thinker, philosopher, commentator. He wrote commentary on all of the Torah and on Tehillim, on Siddur, and plus other books of thought. And as I mentioned, also his works are very relevant to today. We're facing the same battle of right against left as that was going on then in the time of the Reformation in Germany. Well, that was the beginning of it, and thank God, hopefully now we're at the end of it, where the relevance will be just a little bit different. And I mentioned the introduction and I read from the introduction to the chapter. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper into some of the verses. Once again, take my glasses off to read. And we said that this was Lamanatseach, and it's translated here as the one who gives victory, the one who causes and brings about victory. We're asking Asaph, who's the one who wrote this, ask God, Al Tashches, please, don't let destruction come. Hodinu lecha Elokim, Hodinu. We have given thanks to you, God. We've given thanks. And we realize, V'karov Shemecha, that your name is close. And we realize that all the wonderful things that you've done, and Sipru Niflosecha. And we are telling over the wonders of your works. In other words, even if it looks like things are despairing, that there's desperation, that it doesn't look like there's any hope for the forces of good, because the forces of evil are actually looking so powerful, so many allies and partners working with them. Looks like they're going to overrun the world with their immorality, with their indecency, with their evil. Because take a look. Evil's controlling the world now. Tyranny. When it comes to the COVID-19, people's freedoms are gone. There's no more democracies in the world. The governments don't work with any kind of legislation. It's just one man decides the rule, and we're waiting patiently for the next time that the governor or the president or the prime minister or whatever is going to make his declaration of what's going to be happening. The media is on the side of the evil, for the most part. And it looks like the power of the right, when there was even leaders that were on the right, looks like they're not having any power anymore. They're rendered speechless, they're rendered useless almost, except for Trump. And in the midst of this despair, Asaph is telling us we must give thanks to God because he is still close to us. And we can remember, with my understanding, we can realize by telling over and recounting all the good things that God has done in the past, all the wonders, to realize that God has the power anytime he wants. When the basket is full, when the evil's basket is full, and the time for vengeance against them is going to happen, God will do what has to be done. we have given you thanks. We have acknowledged and proclaimed your greatness, power, and sovereignty in the past. That we, what does it mean? That we perceive and we understand that, and we know that your existence and your control over things is foremost. We know that. And even though it looks like it's not there now, but he says it is still very near to us. It has not yet gone more than our ability to understand it and to grab onto it. You did miracles all throughout. We remember them because we know that you can do it again when the time is right. The Jewish people were taken out of Egypt with amazing miracles. The Jewish people were saved countless upon countless times. From Haman, from Haman, and Achashverosh in the times of Esther and Mordechai, to the times of the Hashmonaim, Hanukkah, when they revolted and took over and restored the sanctity of Israel from the hands of the wicked people that were there at the time. And we will be talking about how Hanukkah applies more than any other miracle, more than any other story. The story of Hanukkah applies to us now. And that'll be the next class, hopefully next week, in the beginning of next week. We'll be giving that one to be able to understand as we're coming to the story of Hanukkah, because Hanukkah is going to be hopefully B'ezras Hashem next week from now. And we are, if we understand the full power of Hanukkah, it'll be very helpful for us to also as we light the candles as we celebrate. It says, so we thank you, God, and we realize that you're still near us. And we realize, as God says, Ki ekach moed, ani meshar meshbot. This is God talking now. We realize that God is saying, but when the time comes, the right time comes, I will grab that time and I will judge fairly and take care of what needs to be taken care of. It is through these historic events, through us realizing the historic events we mentioned before, that of going out of Egypt, of Hanukkah, of Purim, and other times when the Jewish people were saved, or the world was saved from horrific situations. We, by thinking about these things today, realize that just as it happened then, when the time was right, God came and did it. God says to us, you should know, when I shall choose the right and correct time, and I do choose the right time, because you see I've done it. And sometimes I allow a lot of time to pass before I take care of punishing the people that are doing the evil. For example, 400 years, the Jews, 400 years from the beginning of the exile in Egypt, and it was 210 years of terrible suffering, which is quite a bit of time. And in other things, especially now in this exile, we're waiting a very long time. But just as God said in Egypt, that the time has come that I went through Egypt and took everybody out, once I choose the proper time, and then I will judge, and I shall crush tyranny and establish order. And furthermore, this is, again, reading from Rav Hirsch, even when the earth and all its inhabitants despair, because they're fearful, they're afraid, they're weak, and they have doubts, and they lose faith, off and on, even if they really have faith, but enough things are happening even right now. We have to constantly remind ourselves, have faith in God, have faith in God. You know, things will work out. And even though people think that it's not going to be, that they lose faith in the coming of better days, God says, Anochi tikanti amudeh hasela. Don't worry, there are limits. Because I have established the pillars purposely, I have established pillars, meaning to say I have established certain limits and boundaries and certain things that hold the earth in place that cannot be shaken. And therefore I say to the hypocrites, don't act like you're acting. And I tell the lawless, don't lift up your horn, meaning don't become so arrogant. Don't think you're going to get away with it. Don't. Al tarimu lamarom karnachem. Don't raise up your horn, your arrogance, your pride to the heavens. Tidabru and speak, but savar asuk, with a haughty neck. This is exactly what's happening, see? Now, even more than ever, there are times when wicked were arrogant. Often, always they are. But now, not only are they lifting themselves up in arrogant lamarom against God, but they are actually speaking out with this raised neck, with this arrogant, haughty neck. They're not ashamed to even say what they want. Again, if I wouldn't know, or if you would know that I'm reading from something that Asaph wrote thousands and thousands of years ago, you would think that it's something that someone's writing today. So God says like this, and the verse explains that the pillars do not mean physical supports of the tangible world, physical supports of the actual world. It means the bases, the foundations of the moral and social world order as God has proclaimed from the beginning of his creation and once again renewed the time of giving the Torah to the Jewish people. When God created the world and renewed it with giving the Torah to the Jewish people, he set up and he instituted fundamentals, foundations of moral and spiritual decency and social decency, not social distancing, but social decency. God set that up, and that's unwavering. God has long ago determined and established these pillars that hold, not physically, but spiritually and whatever, the immoral world. Men cannot overthrow them. Eventually, they must conform to them. And one day, whether they like it or not, they will give homage, meaning they will give themselves over and acknowledge, for the sake of their own welfare, they'll acknowledge the existence of these moral boundaries, these moral pillars, or else they'll be destroyed. And we know from the prophecies that when the time of Mashiach comes, God is going to show all kinds of powerful, amazing miracles. There are some people, many people, are going to see them, even wicked people, even people who have been on the left or on the wrong side of things for a very long time, even people who pretend to be on the right and really on the left. They're going to see, and they're going to be shaken, and they're going to change. But there are some people that will not. So God, he's saying here, when it comes to the point when God is going to pass judgment, those wicked people are going to have to acknowledge, for the sake of their own well-being, and the sake of their own existence, either acknowledge, once again, the existence of God and their evil and how wrong they were, or else they'll be destroyed. Al tarimu lamorum karnachem, right? Do not raise your horn up, and don't let your necks go out when you're speaking arrogance. Don't put yourself above other people, thinking you can control them, thinking you can do whatever you want to them. Because if you set yourselves above your fellow man, because you have contempt in God, thinking that you can do whatever you want, like we mentioned, that tyranny is the ultimate. Controlling of other people is the ultimate rebellion against God. So if you think you can set yourself above fellow man and to try to control them, exactly what's happening now, because of your contempt for him and for his law and order, by presuming, by thinking that you can trample, walk all over God's law, you're therefore, in effect, trying to set yourself above God. And therefore, despising and hating and showing your hatred to God. So if you're going to do that, in the end, you're going to be destroyed. As it says, next, in verse 8, Ki Elokim shofet, because God is going to judge. Zeh yashpu v'zeh yorim. He's going to put down this one and bring up that one. You think you're high now? You left. You think that you were so successful in cleverly destroying the right, bringing down the right? Like we mentioned, a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, it looked like things were going full speed ahead towards the right way in all forms. Suddenly, it all got switched over. God can do that, but God will do it back the other way also. You left think that now you're in power, that you were successfully, cleverly able to get rid or silence the right. God's going to judge. You don't have the right to lord yourself over other people. That's against God. And if you're going to do that, God will judge you. Because God can, just as quickly as you think you were raised up, God will put you down. For there is a cup in the hand of God. He pours from it. All the lawless of the earth will drink only, not from the wine anymore, but from the sediment that's down in there. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the idea. God's going to punish. He's going to give exactly what these people need. The wine, the good stuff, he'll give to the good people. He'll leave the sediments for the wicked. Ach shmoreha yimtzu yishtu. He'll squeeze out the sediment from all wine, and that's what they're going to drink. Kol rishai aretz, all the evil, all the wicked of the land, of the earth. But as for all the lawless men on earth who have not responded to discipline, have not acknowledged and recognized how bad they are and what they're doing so wrong, once God's cup of destiny will be drained, history at last will have come to its main predestined goal, which is the destruction of the left, of the wicked. And I, says Asaph, I realize now that I had no right and no reason to, right maybe, but no reason to despair. Because I realize that God is going to give those people what they deserve. And I shall declare it forever. I will sing praises to the God of Yaakov. But as for me, I wish to proclaim that for all times to come, those truths which the stories that we've already learned so many times that show God's miracles at the right time when they're supposed to happen, they reveal to us that those things will happen. I won't have to anymore cry out to God, don't destroy. But instead I will rise up and sing a song of praise to God. For praise, we call Karne Rishayim Agadeya, Teromamna Karnos Tzadik. This means that I will be singing praises of the horns of the wicked that have been chopped down, of the lawless people, the wicked people that have been chopped down, and that the horns of the righteous will rise up. So what are horns? It doesn't mean literal horns, but it means the pride, the arrogance, that power that they seem to think they have. The power of the evil, of the wicked, that power is an evil power. It's a haughtiness, it's an arrogance, it's a tyranny, it's Satan, it's Amalek, it's the left. That power, that evil, will be chopped down. And the power of the wicked, of the righteous, the power of the tzaddikim, which is goodness, which is a connection to God, which is morality, spirituality, decency, respect for the fellow man. That will be raised up. And the idea being that when he started out this song, praying to God, don't destroy, you won't have to do that anymore. Be singing praises of God. Thank you for destroying the wicked and bringing to rise, finally, the power, the influence, the shining brightness of the righteous. Hopefully soon may we see that happen. And there's no better time than the coming week of Hanukkah for the light to shine out of the darkness. And we look forward to next week discussing and showing how actually the story of Hanukkah once further discusses this concept, this idea. And one more thing. My wife pointed out she decided to look at the next chapter, the next parak, Ayin Vav, 76, because that's going to be Trump's chapter for next year. And this is amazing. I'm not going to go through it all right now, but just basically in an overview. This is talking as if the destruction of the wicked had already happened. As it says, that God's name is recognized in Judah. In Israel, his name has become great. His tabernacle, his temple is complete. And his dwelling place is in Zion. And there he broke the bows of the wicked, their shields and their swords of battle. So we can hope for that. Just as this chapter 75 is extremely appropriate for what's happening now, with God's help. The next, when June comes, which is going to be his birthday, or so, then we'll be saying it in his honor 76, we'll be able to look back and say, thank you, God, for destroying finally the wicked. One more thing, I've set up for me a YouTube channel, Torah Connect. Connect the Torah. Good evening.